to this webcast hosted by Link. My name's Neil, I'm the Chief Exec of Link, and today I'm talking with Regine Deleu. Regine's founder and Exec Director of Di-Phy Innovations, and they're probably the newest digital twin agency consultancy in New Zealand. Regine, you can kind of confirm that, I guess. And today we're just here to have a chat about digital twins. So thanks for joining, Regine, and please go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll get started with our chat.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm Regine. I have my own business since April. And before that, I've worked as digital twin director, created a digital twin for Auckland Transport. Originally, I'm from Belgium, the Flemish part, but I've been working and traveling all over the world, doing mergers, helping organizations with their digital transformation and so on. So, yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm sure you're well known. I think you're well known in New Zealand with some of the things that you've done when you were building some of the enterprise architecture guidelines for government and things. And female New Zealander of the Year, I think, finalist at one point as well.
Yeah.
So,
IT, that kind of thing. So a few awards, and as a finalist, that was really, I appreciate it enormously.
No, it's excellent. Well, no, thanks. You and I have known each other, I think, probably for 5 or 6 years now since we started building Link. So, it's great to kind of come full circle and be able to chat about, one of our favorite topics, I guess. So I thought where we'd start, we should really help define what a digital twin is, because there's a fairly standard definition out there, right? Which is a digital representation of a physical thing. But I think most people, when they hear that, they think about the models they may be seen of jet engines and wind turbines and electrical transformers, that kind of thing. In our case at Link, we're building the digital twin of the organization. So there's a bit of a mind shift needed about what these models can represent. What would a good definition be from your perspective? How would you describe it to somebody for the first time?
So it's indeed a virtual representation of a physical thing, but it can come in all kinds of sizes and forms. So you have a digital twin of a component, which is a small twin that is part of a larger component. They are digitally created to test out their functionality, even maybe later on 3D printed as a prototype, and then eventually, if it's okay, configured into the final design. Next, you have a digital twin of a product. So that's a complete object recreated in a digital context. Normally, they are used to test long-term capabilities, also identify points of failures and things like that. Then you have a digital twin of a system. This type of digital twin shows the functionality of an entire system. If you think of a factory, so it's showing all the parts of a factory, how they work together. The next is a digital twin of a process. So that twin covers the whole process from begin to end. It can be one process or more, but it actually focuses more on the process itself. Bigger than that, like you said, a digital twin of an organization. So that covers the whole organization, from customers and strategy to production, process, technology. So all the things that work together and visualize that. There is a digital twin, a spatial digital twin. So think of agriculture, transport, utility industry. So the whole power grid of New Zealand, for instance, that's used with a digital twin, a spatial digital twin. And then you have the biggest one is a digital twin of an ecosystem, like smart cities, ecosystem like climate, that is used to predict the impact of climate change, weather conditions, and so on. So you can see that there's a lot of useful applications of a digital twin. Digital twin is not always the same as simulation. So the difference between a digital twin and simulation is actually it matters in scale. So a simulation typically studies one particular process. You can say it's kind of a digital twin of a process, but it's built on existing data points. A digital twin can itself run a number of useful simulations. So it also does simulations, but it can study multiple processes. And it's normally built with real-time data from sensors. It also has predictive analytics and artificial intelligence in there. So that's the kind of the difference between a digital twin and a simulation.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess the other thing we should probably help clarify are what makes a digital twin different from some of the things that have been around for a while. You know, for example, some people may have heard what you have just said and gone, oh, GIS. It's a digital representation of our natural world, you know, from a cartographic perspective, from a data perspective, or CAD. If we go back even further, computer-aided design, we were building models of things so we could construct them. So then there must be some characteristics that live within that digital twin environment which make it a digital twin and not just another piece of software. You know, when I'm introducing it to people, I'm thinking of things like the analytics, because we have data about the system built into the product. We have a visualization, whatever that is. You know, we build end-to-end models of how organizations operate so that we can apply systems thinking through the process. There is some simulation based on analytics. There's integration with other things.
Especially the data from sensors. So it actually uses the real-time data, which means that with a digital twin, you actually can test or simulate or optimize your physical thing via your digital twin, which is a big difference with just a CAD model, for instance. So that's the digital twin, that you actually can control your physical thing with your virtual twin. Yeah.
There was a good example I used a few years ago to help people understand, and that was the Apollo moon missions, actually. When you know, in Apollo 13, the movie, there's an incident, and they have to construct that CO2 scrubber from the bits that are within the lunar module, and they did it by doing it on Earth and effectively reading the instructions to them when they were in space, because they couldn't physically be there to do it. And it's a good analogy, I think, for what a digital twin is, where you can do something over here, but it will actually affect the thing over there. So I know you've been working on a capability model, I guess, for digital twins. Could you maybe just talk a bit about where you're at with that and what you hope the outcomes of that will be? How will it help people take advantage of the technology? How will you be using it, I guess, in your consultancy? Are there tips and tricks coming out for people? Because one of the barriers I still see in the sector is there's an aspect of this where people believe it's really complicated. These are big things. It's going to take a long time. It costs a lot of money. They need a significant capability in their organization to do this. So I was hoping you could just help people maybe with some of your experience around how does a capability list help them understand how to get started and start making use of digital twin?
Yeah, well, actually, before you start thinking of acquiring a digital twin, the first thing you need to know is what you're going to do with it. What's your strategy? And where will the impact be on your organization, but also on your customers, on your product and services, on everything you actually touch as an organization. And actually, so I've designed that digital twin capability framework based on the digital twin capability periodic table from the Digital Twin Consortium. It's a mouthful. As you know, so the periodic table describes about 60 capabilities, technical capabilities that is needed to create a digital twin. My framework actually has those capabilities plus other capabilities like strategy, how to create a blueprint, a roadmap for your digital twin, looking at your operational support, looking at enterprise alignment, so to make sure you have your enterprise or your organization is ready for that digital twin. So all those capabilities are explained in detail with all the different options per capability, the architecture behind it, the several processes that you can follow, and even the skills you need in-house to keep on operating and growing your digital twin. So in all those capabilities, we can actually help our customers. So from creating a strategy to actually implementing, mentoring, and actually helping growing that digital twin for the customers. So there's a huge range of things we actually can help with.
So are you writing a book? Are you releasing it as a piece of material?
Well, it could be a book, yes.
Okay. As if you haven't got enough to do already. So that's, no, that's great. Okay. So obviously I'm interested in being quite specific here about the digital twin of the organization. I think as a tool for a business, it has a significant amount of capability that it can bring. We focus on helping people understand the impact of change prior to their decision to invest in it, because change costs money and takes people time. So if you can identify the value of the outcome and you can help people understand how the working, the operational model will change as a result, and you can do that inside models before you physically implement it. You know, I think there's a lot to be done there. Obviously, digital twin of the organization is much bigger than that. So given the work that you did at Auckland Transport in particular, could you maybe just help people understand what the ultimate goal might be for having a digital twin of the organization and some of the things you've found and learned as you implemented it at Auckland Transport?
Yeah, so digital twin of an organization, like I already said, is connecting all the bits of your organization, from your people to your data that flows through your organization, the assets that you have, the processes and the technology. So you actually try to visualize that. With the digital twin with Auckland Transport, their digital twin also had a connection to the outside world, like with traffic lights, the information board, the public information board. So I'm not sure if you can hear, there's a lot of noise outside. Yeah, what the most impact and the benefits is of a digital twin of your organization, that you have a huge amount of good insight into your organization. Think of restructuring. You can actually see where there's an overlap, where there's still manual things to do, what will be an impact if you change one thing in your organization, whether it is a process, whether it is a department, whether it is a simple application. You actually, with the digital twin, you can see the impact, not only surrounding that thing you want to change, but also what's going to be the impact to your customers, to your products and services you provide. So with the digital twin of the organization, you actually have a better, alternate lens on your organization. So kind of looking into your organization visually and see where you can change things before you actually do the changes. So you can actually see the impact before you actually do the changes, which is a huge benefit.
Oh, a huge time cost saving for people, because you eliminate the risk. I often talk about it's an application of systems thinking. So what's the consequence of changing something over here on something that's right over there? So if you can connect those things together through the value chain, through the supply chain, through the processes, the work that people do, you can model an impact by saying, well, I do want to remove paper from this part of the process, but you can't just do it like that, because there is a downstream consequence to that change, and you have to understand that. You might find that you have a data black hole and you need to go and find data to put into your new process so that you can still deliver your outcome. Or you might find that there are parts of the process which can be eliminated, and that's where you create a cost saving and an efficiency gain, and having the model supporting that thinking and you being able to explore how to make those changes so that you understand what good looks like and you have those metrics for success. That's a huge benefit as people start to think about digital transformation and change inside the organizations. So how long did it? Sorry, go on.
So also thinking about where the information comes from. So Auckland Transport was set up out of 13 councils, for instance. So you can imagine that there's a lot of things that are done differently. So with that digital twin, we could identify where those overlaps are, or where different and the same information comes from different resources. So trying to simplify that. The digital twin was an enormous help by that. Yeah.
No, that's really good. That's a great point. So there's a connect from the outcomes that you can produce with something like a digital twin to things like your information governance strategy and your data governance strategy and your IT strategy. So there's lots of connect points, which is why the digital twin of the organization becomes quite big, right? Because it has the opportunity to connect all the things. So what was the effort required with Auckland Transport? I mean, how long did it take? What should people be thinking about if they wanted to establish a similar capability for themselves?
So because of my work for all of government, the whole government enterprise architecture framework, so I've used that as a baseline to create the digital twin of the organization, because that already shows the connection between your business, your core of your business, so the business, the customers, the channels they are using, the information that flows through it, the technology, but also looking at the standards, privacy and security alignment, the performance measures, and of course then connecting that with your strategy and your investment. So that was the baseline that we had without having to do much work. But then the next step was to then have work sessions with the different departments to actually really understand how they work, what are the processes within those different departments, and how you then afterwards connect those different departments together, because most of the organizations have silos in their organization that just work independently of the rest. So we try to make sure we understand what's the connection between all the other departments and make it into one coherent thing. So it took us about 6 months to have a really good baseline digital twin. Of course, we needed then to focus on specific areas. So in those 6 months, we could identify about 30 high-level business outcomes that Auckland Transport needed to do. And then we presented that to the board of Auckland Transport, and they identified, look, focus on have a 360 view of the customer, intelligent parking, and procurement, because procurement was done still in the 13 ways like they did before. So that needed to be simplified. So that was the first focus, and that took about another year to actually have it in detail.
That's interesting. I'd hate people to be put off by the effort that's needed. So against an investment like that, where are Auckland Transport now, I guess, in terms of the benefits that having the digital twin of the organization has provided for them? So I hate using the term, but the return on investment, because people want to understand that the work that I do with organizations is significantly shorter timescale than that. We can help businesses understand their current state and help them identify opportunities through future states, and it can be it's hours, really. It's tens of hours as opposed to months. But obviously there's a scale thing here when you start addressing the whole of the organization rather than just part of it. So what's the ROI of 18 months of effort to get to that point for AT?
So first of all, they can do impact analysis before. Not in the past, there was you created a project, there was a business case, and from that business case, you needed to decide if it was worthwhile or not.
Yeah.
So with the digital twin now, they can do impact analysis before even doing any business case or using time to do some proof of concept or things like that. So with the digital twin, they can actually now already do impact analysis and see where the problems are, if there are going to be benefits out of it or not, that kind of thing. So it's for most organizations, it's producing something very quickly. Mm-hmm. But with the right outcome, because you know what's going to be the impact, where it's going to impact. So a lot of those previously, without the digital twin, you're not always sure where the impact will be and how the impact, how immense the impact will be to your customers or even your staff or your department or your product and services. And with a digital twin, you actually can see that. Yeah.
No, that's excellent. And thank you for just validating the work we're doing, because, you know, it's good to hear an alignment with some of the conversations that we have and the outcomes that we create. So the market for digital twin as a whole is just growing seemingly exponentially. I think the current numbers at the moment are $170 billion marketplace by 2030. And that's growing from like $1.5 billion annually next year. It's phenomenal, the growth rate.
Yeah.
And it would be amazing for New Zealand to be able to basically have a slice of that pie. I mean, economically, there's a significant amount of capital to be created by delivering this sort of capability. So where do you think we are in New Zealand in terms of the capabilities that we have? Are we well placed to work in this space and deliver outcomes, or have we got work to do?
Well, both of them. There are really good pockets of capabilities here in New Zealand. I can think of a few of them, like NextSpace has a really good digital twin platform to actually do for construction, for transport, that kind of thing. We have Reveal, which is also a Wellington company who does the scanning for underground, which was used for the digital twin of Wellington. And we have a lot of skills that can be used already, like Wellington City Council created a really great digital twin of the city. It's actually globally awarded for their digital twin. There's some really good digital twins I've seen in agriculture and farming within New Zealand. But there's still a lot to do around that. I think of production quality, transport industry, energy network, and that could all improve the lives of New Zealanders. So there is work to do, but we already have good pockets of capabilities in New Zealand.
No, that's good to know. So we just continue educating the market, continue pushing case studies out when we're able to create them, create noise about it, make sure we can stand up at conferences and talk about it and that kind of thing. No. So I guess the usual work that is needed with any emerging technology and capability.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can have any kind of conversation today without the term ChatGPT raising its head, and where generative AI is creating new capabilities. So looking to the future, where do you think that might go? I have some ideas myself just around, it strikes me that within the framework of a digital twin, we have a language model. You know, it's structured data that gets created when you build a digital twin. So as soon as you have structured data, you could create a language model for AI to learn against. And, you know, then the possibilities almost become infinite. If you can dream it, you can do it, kind of thing. But is there anything that you can specifically see on the horizon where the future just means the accessibility of this capability will make it easier for people? Are there new things that we could do that we're currently not doing when we start to think about, adding a level of AI over the top of the digital twin?
Yeah. So digital twin with AI. Well, AI makes the digital twin actually increasingly intelligent. So there's a lot of efficiency added to the digital twin if you add AI or predictive analytics onto it. Some of them, like less need for people to work in dangerous places. So think of construction work or mining industry. With all that information, for instance, we can have a better insight and optimize a lot of capabilities, objectives we want to do. Another thing is decrease of operating downtime. So looking at predicting future failures and ability to actually efficiently manage your assets. Think of a factory line or machinery or things like that. And beyond profitability, for instance, you have also sustainability, which requires a rethinking of what constitute as an optimal operation. So you have your safety, throughput, quality, cost, but also now we have zero carbon, circular economics, and emission. These become really critical criteria to think of. And with digital twin and AI, it's a powerful enabler to a better sustainability, a better transparency of things. Like with the government, you can also have a good transparency of what's happening and where the money goes. Reporting, measurement, optimization. So both digital twin with AI can really power that a lot. So like in if you think of energy, with a digital twin, you can actually look at different processes and the equipment and use and actually identify where those processes and equipment use the most energy and contributes to an unnecessary energy waste. So the same concept we can take for emission output. The same thing. So, like I said, digital twin and AI will play a vital role in for instance, cities who strive to reduce the environment impact. There's a lot of things that we can do.
I think you just defined the next topic we should talk about, which is taking that sustainability lens. It's something we are working on right now, which is how do you use the digital twin of the organization to help the business understand the carbon intensity of its processes from a direct and an indirect emission perspective. And if you can provide that content in terms of a current state and a future state, how do you help decision makers include the sustainability impact of change into their decision-making process? So I'd love to dig into that a bit more with you maybe next time. But for now, look, thanks ever so much. It's been really great to talk. Thanks for taking the time. I hope the listeners have found it really useful. We'll put contact details up at the end of this so they know how to get in touch with you and how to get in touch with me. Well, I look forward to a proper chat with you face to face in a pub in Wellington in the coming week. So yeah, thanks very much, Regine. Really enjoyable. Take care, and we'll catch up soon.
Okay, thank you. See you. Bye.